Brooker, thank you for that kind introduction. I want you to know I was kind of worried about it, but you came out okay. Wish I could make this a little taller. I'm going to begin by thanking Ms. Bricker. Madam President, you've already described her of the excellent, wonderful person she is. You reminded the audience already that she served as president of the board during the time that I was superintendent. And I got to tell you, we had some really, really serious dragged down balls between us. She said some beautiful and kind words, but we've had some wars. Ms. Bricker, I want to express my appreciation for you because I know how hard it was for you to resist telling some of the stories that you could have told. Thank you for that. And to show you how appreciative I am, I'm not going to tell the stories that I know about you. It's a great honor and a great responsibility to join Parents for Public Schools in this remarkable event. And I'm genuinely proud to be with you on this occasion. Now, I want to explain to you why I'm so proud. Let me tell you why I'm so proud. There are essentially three reasons why I'm so proud tonight. The first reason is that Parents for Public Schools began in my home state of Mississippi. As a proud son of Mississippi, the fact that Parents for Public School traced that beginning back to Jackson, Mississippi, where I spent some of my formative years, really makes me feel good. And I really appreciate the work that they've done. Secondly, Parents for Public Schools began to bring parents together to support public education. Public education is one of my passions. But I want to describe about that later so you get the real view of how I feel about it. Public education resonates with me because I believe that public education is the greatest invention, social intervention of our society. It, for me, is the primary basis of America's greatness, and it deserves the support of a grateful nation. I believe that public education must be understood not only because it serves the public, but I believe public education creates the public. And it's its most important function. The public well-being of any city or any state is determined in large measure by the quality of its public education system. The term public has an important meaning for me. The concept in that meaning that's important is the word all. Public schools serve all children. All the children of the public. Public means all citizens, which means all are welcome, all can come, all will be served well, whether they're delinquent or disobedient, whether they're drugged, damaged, or whether they're clean, whether they're brilliant or whether they're handicapped, whether they're privileged or whether they're scarred. If they're children, public schools serve them and serve them well. Because public schools cater to all children, and that's what makes them public. That's what makes them special. That's what makes them important. That's what makes them worthy of the public support. Now, having said that, it's important for me to make sure that you don't misunderstand me. I do not have disdain for other delivery systems. There are many other delivery systems, too, that we can be proud of. The key thing here is, do they serve children well? And for me, if they serve children well, God bless them. Some are selective in their choosing of children. Some serve certain kinds of children. Others serve other kinds of children. But if they serve children well, that's sufficient for me. And I say God bless them. But here's the catch. The catch is, I believe that no matter how well they serve other children, other systems serve children, no matter how well they operate, the heavy lifter for education service for children in the United States of America will always be what we refer to now as the public school system. Public schools will always be the heavy lifter for America's children. Public schools will always have the lion's share of the work, and that is why public schools deserve the support of a grateful nation. Now let me go to my third reason why I'm so proud. For this reason, I owe a great deal of thanks to Parents for Public Schools here in Houston. And I want to share a little story with you so you can understand that. While I served as superintendent of schools here, there was an organization called Houstonians for Public Education. Now, I depended on this organization a great deal because at that time, HISD had both PTA organizations and PTO organizations, and some parents who were active who were not involved with either of the organizations, but were still active. Houstonians for Public Education was made up of real hard-nosed soldiers for education. People like Judy Long, Pat Rosenberg, Nancy Lomack, Laura Bricker, Manny Rodriguez, and add to that people who were not affiliated like Jackie Cross. These people were hard-nosed, on the case, in-your-face warriors for public education. They were informed, they had intensity, they were not going away, so you had to learn to deal with them. And I did. And I'm so proud that I did. Although sometimes I had real difficulty with their ideas, I always understood that their motive was pure. I always understood that they were genuinely interested in improving educational services for children. And even when I disagreed with them, I respected them for their involvement in public education and for children. As time passed, I learned to listen to them. Later on, I even learned to cooperate with them. And finally, I earned their support. And before long, they were soldiers fighting the battles for me. And I want to thank you for that. Thank you, those people. Even now, I'm grateful for their effort. They had a major impact on the important decisions in HISD. They helped define us as the finest urban school district in the United States of America. They were involved in decisions about bond issues, raising taxes, critical issues like representation on district-wide committees that we refer to as peer committees. By that we meant peer examination, evaluation, and redesign committees. These were committees made up of parents, citizens, and HISD professionals who were assigned tasks to solve problems and to come back to us with recommendations on how we could make our district the best in class. We talked about being the best in class a lot. While many other districts were talking about public education surviving, we were talking about public education prevailing. The beauty of the peer group strategy was this group thinking technique. People getting together, working together to solve problems. We had a principle that underpinned that kind of thinking. And that principle was this: none of us are as smart as all of us. Let us get together and think this through. And the peer committees provide the platform so that all of us could get our 2 cents worth in on these problems. Now, I'm not saying that this was a tidy operation. Many times it was really messy, but the result was worth it. When you get people involved in a business, they feel good about it and we feel good about it. Public schools must be public not only in name, they must be public in purpose, but not only in purpose. They must be public in character, but not only in character. They also must be public in operation. And that involves dealing with lots of people. Many of them you'll have to fight with. But the bottom line is working together. Because when people work together on something, if they help create it, they help support it. We had a saying, you can't call your own baby ugly. So if you work on it, you can call it yours. So I want to thank Houstonians for public education that later on morphed into being parents for public education. There's a little distinction here, and there was some tension to begin with on whether we should be parents for public education, which they saw as limiting somewhat, and Houstonians for public education, which they thought should be broader, but I don't think that that is going to define a difference. We know parents as public education, as I'm going to comment later, must be involved in getting all people involved in supporting public education, because just those who are parents are not going to be strong enough to form the public for public education. I'll comment on that a little bit later. We have some problems in public education. We have some things that we need to improve. But first, let me comment on some good news. I'm pleased to say that many of our public schools are the finest in the world. With outstanding teachers and visionary administrators and quality public support. Some of them are amazing success stories that should be written about and talked about. These schools are not always in the suburbs either. Some are in the city. They may be in New York or New Haven, West Chicago or West Monroe, Boston or Bentonville, Denver or Duncanville. All across our nation, there are public schools that are islands of excellence. But that's not the full story. I wish it were. There are many schools in the same great country that are not serving children well. In these schools, children have time that passes slowly. Students attend and just sit there. They don't learn. Teachers speak, but the words are often meaningless to them, or they fall on deaf ears. The atmosphere of disregard in some classrooms confirms the students' suspicion that teachers and administrators simply don't care whether they learn or not, and feel that they have already been written off, and as adults simply don't care. For students passing through these schools, their souls wither and their lives are wasted. Where these schools should be places of attention, they are actually places of detention. I think it's fair to say that we need parents for public education and parents for public schools to be strong, to be stronger, to help solve these problems, because I look to them for the solutions for problems like this. Now, for purpose of being clear, allow me to make this statement. Despite the heroic work of our teachers and principals and superintendents, American youngsters are not achieving the education that they need, nor that our nation needs. But it's not a people problem as much as it is a system problem. I could cite the statistics, but you know them all too well because you've heard it over and over again. And I don't need to bore you with that anymore. But suffice it to say that how we are working doesn't seem to be working, and we need change. Change is hard. Change requires guts and dedication and commitment and tough skin. But improving anything requires change. When you say I'm going to improve something, you are saying I'm going to change something. It's just a fact. Improving and changing goes together. Remember the old Einstein saying, the definition of insanity is the belief that one can get different results doing the same thing. Things are just different now than they were when we came along. Much different when I came along than when you came along. You can tell by the age. I was stopping at a food store the other day to get a bottle of water. And as I was walking back out to my car, drinking this cool bottle of water, I thought, now what would my grandfather say if he saw me just pay $1.69 for a bottle of water? But this is not my grandfather's day. The revolution is already underway. The time is already upon us when we can deliver satellites to the moon with uncustomary ease and pinpoint accuracy. We can deliver satellites to distant nations easy as my father's paperboy could deliver his morning newspaper. So we need different things now. Time has changed. And so must our public schools. But here's the main point that I want to make. Let me wrap this up by making this main point really clear. And here it is. Put bluntly, public schools' most pressing need is a public. Public schools' most pressing need is a public. Let me explain that. In 1986, while I was serving as superintendent here, we attempted a $390 million bond issue, which was needed to repair our crumbling schools and to build new schools to accommodate demographic shifts. After a vigorous campaign, we gathered to celebrate what we were sure was going to be a victory. The votes came in. Shockingly, the citizens of Houston voted down our bond issue by a margin of 53% to 47%. We couldn't believe it. The citizens who we thought we were serving well turned down our request to repair our schools. We made an argument based on need. But we learned that citizens don't care about need if they don't trust you. You must be a function and a part of the public. And analysis of the vote taught us a lot. We thought we had made a great case, and we had made a case about need, but it was about trust. Only 10% of the eligible voters cared enough to even vote. That describes the public for you. And 53% of them voted no. The over 65 community was saying, we don't have a dog in this hunt. We got weak support from the business community. We were hammered by the conservative community. They sent out a mailer to 90,000 people on 2 weeks before the vote. And it was such a powerful mailer. When it ended up in my mailbox, I almost voted against the bond issue. Trust and caring to our employees, the people who go away from us every afternoon and talk to other people in the community. In summary, the Houston Public Schools then was a public school district without a public. This development launched me into a period of deep reflection. I studied the voter analysis with great care. I held meetings with community leaders, with members of my staff, with political experts, with representatives of the over 65 community, with the conservative community. I busted my backside trying to understand what caused such a defeat, such a big loss. But after all those meetings, it was a chance reading of a book that brought me to revelation. I read a book by David Matthews, who is the president of the Kettering Foundation, that has a catchy title. The title of the book is There a Public for Public Schools? Thinking about that, it became clear to me we didn't have a public. Is there a public for public school? Matthews tells us the troubling trends in public education then, 15 years ago, and even now, is that the public is distancing itself somewhat from us. The ones that we take for granted need courting. We need to go to them and build a relationship that inspires trust and care. We need that support with state legislators. We need that support on bond issues. We need that support on important decisions about tax increases. We cannot exist without a public. David Matthews' question, is there a public for public schools, is a question that each of us need to ask in our community. And if there's not, we need to go back and work on it. Our work on it began with our peer committees that I talked about earlier. We invited citizens from all across the city to sit and study issues and to talk to us about it and to make recommendations. As citizens began to do that, can you imagine we had problems with our legal department, and I asked some of the top lawyers in Houston to help us come up with some solutions. We had a legal peer committee to study legal issues. I came in my office one Saturday morning. The conference room was to my rear. I heard noise in the conference room. I went in the conference room and I looked, and there were about 20 of the best lawyers in Houston sitting around the conference table, eating stale donuts and drinking bad coffee, figuring out ways to help us develop a good legal system, free, by inviting them to come in and help. The invitation. One more little story to show how that works. One August Friday, the word came to me just 10 days before school was going to start that the roof on one of our buildings had just totally collapsed. The cafeteria roof just fell in. If kids had been in there, they would have all been killed. The press hammered us the first day. And they hammered us the second day. Then we say, we've got to see how to get out of this. So we called a press conference and we said, we're not going to start school on our regular starting date because we are not sure that all of our buildings are safe. And we are going to look at every building and investigate to see if it's safe before we start school. Now there are about, presently now, 300 schools in the Houston Independent School District. Going around visiting every school is a chore. Plus, you're talking about having engineers and architects do this. You don't have that. So the press conference, we said, we need the help of all of our citizens to come and help us guarantee the safety of our kids. Guess what happened the next day? We had architects and engineers volunteered to come and evaluate all these buildings. So the next day we announced that some of the buildings had a flat roof, and although they didn't have the steeple roof that fell in, we didn't trust them either. And we needed somebody to look at our flat roof. And we asked the press to take their helicopters and look at our flat roof. So guess what happened the next day? All across Houston, we got helicopters from the TV stations with television anchor people hanging on the side of the television showing that. The story was about them then, being heroes and helping us. Those are stories about developing a public. People have good hearts. They want to work. They want to be involved. Just a matter of finding ways to do that. After reading Is There a Public for Public Schools, I concluded that we lost the bond issue because we didn't have a public. After 2 years, we tried this bond issue again. After the work of the peer committees, working with the individual groups, even working with the conservative groups that were passionate in that first bond issue. In the second bond issue, they still didn't like us, but they weren't passionate anymore. This time, we decided that we wanted $678 million for the bond issue. Almost twice how much we'd asked before and got turned down. The turnout was massive. And 73% of them voted yes, granting us the ability to do it by involving people. Why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because in many ways it can be claimed that Houstonians for public schools, that later became parents for public schools, helped us learn how to involve the public in public schools. Wasn't easy. We took a lot of Excedrins, Nancy. You and I fussed on the phone a lot, but we got it done. And I want you to know this because when you go back to your various hometowns, I hope that you will first get the book by David Matthews and the Kettering Foundation. It may be out of print now, I don't know. But try it. The sum and substance of all of this is I'm asking parents for public schools to expand yourself, to become even stronger than the 17 chapters that you have now, so that you're all across the United States, wherever there's a public school system that can use your kind of support, where you can have not only parents, but other citizens to be involved in supporting public schools because public schools are so worthy of support. You've been such a good audience that I'm going to switch now and share a little poem with you that I found that I think you'll enjoy. It has to do with taking responsibility and not pointing fingers at others. Some of you probably heard this, but others of you have not. The college professor said one day, "Such rawness in the students is a shame. Lack of preparation in high school is clearly to blame." The high school teacher said, "Good heaven, that boy's a fool. The fault, of course, is in the middle school." Middle school teacher said, "Such stupidity may I be spared. They sent him to me so unprepared." The primary teacher said, "Kindergartners, they are blockheads all. They call that preparation, it's worse than nothing at all." The kindergarten teacher said, "Lack of training never did I see. What kind of woman must that child's mother be?" The mother said, "Poor helpless child, he's not to blame. His father's folks, they're all the same." The father said at the end of the line, "I doubt the rascal's even mine." Thank you so much. Thank you.